excited to do this show. Last time we tried it, the power went out in Texas for like 7 days. So it was bonkers. Hopefully the internet and electricity gods will shine their love upon us today. But somebody who I really love to be here is Katie Fox from Ecamm. She is the co-host for today. I'm so excited. If you don't know her, follow her everywhere. Go to their YouTube channel. She's amazing. One of the best builders and creators of community that I have ever met. So she's amazing. So you need to follow her everywhere. And our friend Marshall Fox, who I told before, and I tell a lot of my guests this, I secretly stalk. Like, he is incredible. Go to the Ecamm YouTube channel and watch some of his tutorials. He is slick. He is polished. He understands branding. He makes me look like he's like Picasso, and I'm like scribbling with crayons, you know, with the stuff I'm doing. So he is impressive. So go check all his stuff out. Go to his stuff we're going to be throwing up later, but he is impressive. Marshall, thank you for being here today.
Hey, look, Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped up. I'm pumped up. We were just saying off camera. I said, look, if Katie's involved, it's an automatic yes. So I'm
Yes.
happy to be here.
I know she's, like I said, my secret weapon. So we got some of our friends showing up today. Somebody from Facebook going, hi friends, hi back at you. The Paul Duncan is going, yeah, Katie. See, all I have to say is Katie's going to be here, and here we go. And my friend Gary Stockter saying, good morning, you beautiful people from Huntington Beach. Gary, thank you so much for showing up today, buddy. I appreciate it. Ask your questions, because Gary is an incredible entrepreneur, a podcast producer, does some really cool stuff. I'm a musician. So, Gary, ask your questions today, but Gary is amazing as well. So, let me hit go on the podcast machine, and we will get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
Have you ever found yourself pondering how to truly elevate your brand? Maybe you're intrigued by the secrets behind successful branding and design. Or maybe you're looking to transform your passion into a distinctive and admired brand. If those questions strike a chord with you today, then you're in for a special treat, because today we are beyond excited to host a guest who has successfully navigated this path. He's a maestro of branding and design who turned his journey from insurance sales to a $1 million freelance design business into a source of inspiration for many. Marshall's going to be sharing his journey, his insights, and his hot top tips for successful branding and design. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and gear up for an episode brimming with insights and inspiration. So let's dive right in. Marshall, how are you doing today?
I am phenomenal. I'm phenomenal. Just came up from sunny Florida to Maryland, but it's hot up here too, so it's kind of giving Florida vibes, at least this week. So
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I was telling them before, if you guys hear my noise gate, like if you're listening to the podcast, I have like two air conditioners and a fan going on me, because it is hot here in Texas. But we're going to power through because we have power. That's all that matters.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anyway, I'm talking to Marshall today, but I want to let you guys know that he is going to be speaking at Creator Camp, and we're going to be talking about that later on today, kind of towards the end. I'm going to show you guys a commercial, but if you want to know more about this, you can go to ecamm.tv/Creator Camp. Marshall is going to be one of he's going to be training there. I'm one of the camp counselors. It's October 11th through 13th. If you want to find out more, once again, go to ecamm.tv/Creator Camp. I am so excited for this. I have always wanted to do a camp like this. Katie has put it together. There's so much fun stuff. Katie, just tell a little bit about what's going on in Creator Camp.
Oh my gosh. So we have 5 hands-on workshops that our camp cabins are going to be working their way through on a circuit. So if you want to really get to know other creators, other entrepreneurs and video professionals, this is the experience for you. We're keeping it really small, really intentional. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We forced Jeff to be a camp counselor, so which has been tricky because we have a bunch of camp counselors, and they're like, "Well, what do you need us to do? We're here to teach." And I'm like, "Nope, you're here to mentor. You're going to bring your cabin from one session to the next, and it's just going to be really hands-on." The hope is that everyone will leave this experience not only with a set of skills, but also with the context and the people that you can ask questions to and build your own community long after camp is over. So I'm
Awesome.
really excited about it.
Awesome. And Marshall, why don't you give a little, I'm going to go to a session because I'm a Marshall Fox fan, and I mean, I'm so excited. I know there's a lot of Marshall Fox fans here in the audience as well. But what are you give a little tease about what you're going to be training people on at Creator Camp?
Well, honestly, this episode is a big tease. 'Cause I'm going to be talking about my lane of brilliance, which is branding. So that we're going to be doing, branding, creating a live show, branding that from scratch. But you'll leave there with some assets that you can use and you can put into action right away. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I'm teaming up with Anna and Fulgens. So we're going
Cool.
to tag team our workshop, and they're going to be talking about equipment and how to use certain equipment. So, I'm excited about it. And if you haven't registered, you need to. And a little secret, I think it may be sold out, y'all, but you may have a sliver,
Oh yeah.
a tiny chance to register
Oh.
quickly to join us.
Right.
So yeah, you got to get in there. You got to be in the building. I'm
Yeah,
excited
and
about
even
seeing
if it's sold out, you can be on the wait list because I mean people are excited about this, and we've even got Mr. Paul Duncan saying really excited about Creator Camp. Can't wait to meet everyone. Paul, I think
Yeah.
it'll be the first time I get to meet you in real life. That will be a
That'd be awesome.
pleasure. So looking forward to that. So I know Marshall doesn't want to. He teased a little bit, but let me. If you don't know who Marshall is, let me introduce you to him. If he because you don't like to talk about yourself a lot, but he's a graphic designer, content creator, and CEO of 120 Design Studio, a boutique design firm which specializes in helping seven-figure professional speakers in two areas where they consistently need. They tend to fall short, and they need branding and online presence. And his keen sense of design and attention to detail helps his clients increase brand awareness, credibility, and sales. And he recently surpassed the 1 million revenue milestone, and he's shifted into coaching other freelance designers in the areas of mindset, productivity, and business through his private community, signature program, YouTube channel, and podcast. So he is also a proud Ecamm ambassador, and when he isn't sipping coffee and obsessing over color palettes, he could probably be found in line somewhere at Universal Studios, which we chatted about earlier today. But once again, so excited
Yep.
Marshall's here. So let's just
Thank you. Thank
dive
you.
right into this because I know a lot of people have questions. I want to pick your brain. That's what I love about the show. So we're going to talk about, like, right off the beginning, Marshall, your kind of journey to success. Can you kind of share with us your journey from selling insurance door to door to becoming like a successful graphic designer and business coach?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the stage is 2016, the summer of 2016. I will never forget it, y'all. I'm selling insurance. I sell final expense insurance to seniors. So we're talking small policies so they can pretty much have something for their families to be able to have a funeral with, to be honest. So it wasn't the most glamorous career, but I honestly had a lot of fun doing it because I was a young, fresh face, knocking on doors and sitting there with seniors, and they're telling me their stories and things of that nature. But I had a couple great months, and then I fell flat on my face financially. I won't get into the details, but you have to buy leads. So people that see the commercial and call and say, "Hey, I want some more information." The more information is me. I show up to your door kind of unexpectedly. I was like, "Hey, you request some information. I'm here to give it to you." So I bought a batch of leads, which were kind of expensive. And I just could, for some reason, this batch, I just couldn't get a return on investment. No one let me in to sell them a policy. So I bought more leads and kind of dug myself into a bit of a hole. And this is the first time, and I came up middle class, I never missed a meal. We weren't rich by
Mm-hmm.
any means, but never really saw a financial struggle. But this is the first time in my adult life where I'm like, okay, this is getting real. Like they're calling to try to repossess the car, and bills are
Oh,
falling behind. My credit's getting torn to shreds. And I was at a crossroads, like, do I keep going or do I make a pivot? So my wife first, she said, I'll go back to work and help out because she was a stay-at-home mom at the time. We had two kids. I said, no, I can't have you do that. I'm more of a traditional husband. I'm like, I
right.
want my wife to not have to work out, bring home the bacon, right? So and she's actually the one that said, "Hey, why don't you try graphic design? You've done some marketing materials for your insurance business. Why don't you do that for clients? You seem to have an eye for it." And I gave her every excuse in the book. I said, I didn't go to school for it. I don't have any experience. I don't see anybody like me in this space. I'm like, what's the average salary? I Googled that. It was like 45K a year. I'm like, I can't feed my family with that. I had $1 million dreams, y'all, like to build a massive insurance agency with my father who had been in the industry for a while. So I just didn't see a way forward in graphic design for me, at least not in a way that could feed my family. But I didn't have anything to lose. So I said, you know what? I'll go for it. So I actually approached someone on Facebook in a community and I said, hey, man, it looks like your logo could use some work for your business. You mind if I work on a couple designs for you? I'm trying to build my portfolio. It would be completely pro bono. I just ask that, if you like what I do for you, that you just share it with some folks and let them know, just send them my way, right? Give me a good testimonial too, of course, if you like what I do. So I did a couple concepts for him, and he didn't like two of them, but he really gravitated towards one of them. So we refined that, and when he shared that within the community that we're both a part of, and on LinkedIn, um, all the flame emojis you can imagine. People like, "Oh, that's fire. I need a logo." And then somebody said, "I need a book cover." So I got a couple clients that way, and then those clients referred me to other clients. Next thing you know, I was doing a website. So everything I was doing was really the first time I was doing it. So I was failing forward. I was just using the tools that I had. I didn't even have the Adobe suite at the time. I was using the Affinity suite, which I still use to this day and I love. But I do use the Adobe suite now. Um, but I looked back 3 months later after I started, and I had made about almost 20 grand. So I'm like, okay, this is something. I don't know what it is, but I think if this trend continues throughout, for a full 12 months, it could be an actual career. So that's kinda how I got started, um, but fast forward 6, almost 7 years later, done over $1.2 million in the space, and it's just me and, my wife helps with the business, and I have, my right-hand man, his name is Joe. He's pivotal, he's critical, to my business. He does a lot of the dirty work, if you will,
Hmm.
but, it's just us, man, so it's been a true blessing to my family, and I like you mentioned earlier, I've been, I don't want to say pivoting, but I've been doing a lot more coaching as well because I see a lot of designers who are way more talented than I am. They're struggling. They're struggling financially, and they it's like they're starving artists. They're not able to feed their families. And I'm like, you're making certain mistakes. I
Hmm.
won't get into all the mistakes right now, but there are
Right.
things that you can do to clean up your business to be able to do this full time at a high level sustainably. So I know that was a lot, but that's kind of how I got into this space.
Well, that's
Wow.
awesome. Wow. And perseverance. You had to,
Yeah.
a lot of people just throw up their hands and go, I don't, I'll just go to the 9 to 5 or whatever. But you said, no, I'll give it a shot. So that's really,
Yep.
really cool. So, you had a question, Katie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there were a ton of challenges as you were kind of making that transition over from insurance into design. What were a couple of them, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big one, to be honest, I had a lot of guilt because I had got my insurance license, and I had joined my
Yeah.
father on this insurance journey. And I feel like I kind of left him high and dry when I made the pivot. But he was like, "Man, go for it, do your thing." I'm blessed with very supportive parents, so they just want to see me win, right? And they just want me to be
Mm,
able to provide for my family, so it doesn't fall on them. Like that's what any parents want, any parent
Mhm.
wants, right?
yeah.
Um, but in also in that transition, me not knowing what the next step is, what it should be, what it looks like. So I did a lot of failing. I took on way more than I should have early on. But on the flip side, I was able to get 10,000 hours into put 10,000 hours into my craft in about three and a
Wow.
half years. And
That's
I
great.
was able to learn from a lot of those mistakes so I can make adjustments going forward. I had one project I worked on for about 2 years because of scope creep, and I
Oh,
didn't define
Yeah.
expectations and have a set amount of revisions, and when I should expect to hear back from the client with their feedback. So they would go like 2 or 3 months without me hearing from them. They would show back up like, "Hey, let's do this," and I'm like, "All right." So I learned from all of those things so I can change the way I do business going forward. And even a lot of designers right now, they overpromise and underdeliver, right? I fell into that trap before, taking on way more, not wanting to say no. But now it's like I know exactly what to do and what not to do. And a lot of those clients, they gave me grace early on when they could have given me something less than 5 stars, but they still
right.
gave me 5 stars. So I really appreciate their patience. But I was always honest with my clients. letting them know, look, I don't have a ton of experience doing this. So you really taking a risk. This is a gamble working with
Mm-hmm.
me, but I want to make sure you're 120% satisfied when you leave here with me. That's where
Right.
the 120 comes from, the
I was
120
gonna say, is that
Designer
where the name
Studio.
comes from? Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Eric Thomas. It's he's a motivational speaker. He has the whole 120 philosophy, just giving 120%. It's going
It's
above and
awesome.
beyond that extra mile. So that's kind of where that stems from. But yeah, learned a lot. Failed a lot of failing early on, but just
Yeah.
learning from those adjustments and not letting
Oh.
it defeat me, looking at them as lessons, right? Not necessarily losses.
So one of the things you said was you fail forward, which I really like, or you fell forward. And I think that's one of the things that, like, yeah, if you're doing this journey, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make significant mistakes. Things will not go right. You will
Yes.
do stupid things financially. You'll say stupid things to clients, but saying like, and what I get from you is the grace and the understanding. Like, listen, man, I know I screwed up, and being that transparency will go a long way with like forgiveness with during those times that you mess up. So one of the things I want to dive into, because it's when you read it, you're like, what? And so that 1 million in revenue as a freelance designer, I know a lot of freelance designers. They hear that number and like, what? What did he do? Did he get like IBM, or like, how did this happen? So what strategies did you employ to, I mean, you just didn't land a $1 million client. There was a lead up to that. So what strategies did you use to get to that level?
Yeah, there's so many strategies, but a big one, and I know it sounds cliche and people don't like to hear it, but it's niching down, right? It's
Mm.
niching down. I served a particular niche or niche very early on. So I like you see right now, I serve 7, 8 figure speakers, coaches, consultants. But earlier on, they weren't necessarily at that level, but they were still in that space. So they were still the speaker, author, coaches, and consultants. So I had a good stronghold. I had a it's almost like a stranglehold on that niche. Um, so like for example, on Facebook, sometimes you'll see people that say, "Hey, tag a graphic designer. I need whatever," right? And 40 people will be tagged, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will be tagged by a couple people. And if you go onto my site, if you click onto my site, they would say, "Hey, I serve speakers. I'm a graphic designer who serves speakers. So whether you need a book cover, business cards, a table cover with retractable banner, website, booking site, I'm your guy." So because I spoke to a particular target market, a particular audience, I got a long hard look above everybody else because they were serving everybody. So it didn't matter that I didn't have a ton of experience. It didn't matter that I didn't have a ton of followers, and it still doesn't to this day. Um, I got a long hard look because I spoke to them. So I spoke directly to who they are and their pain points and challenges. So I met them where they are, and just by having a niche, I come across as an expert. Whether I am or I'm not, it remains to be seen, right? But I showed up like I'm an expert, so that really helped early on. So I got a lot of clients, and mind you, they're not spending a ton of money, right? And I also, this is another strategy. I came in a little higher than the average designer. I think when I started, logos were about between 250 and 350.
Right.
So other designers would charge maybe $50, $100 just getting started, but I came in a little higher. Um, so, and the thing is, and I tell people this all the time, I was at a bit of an advantage, revenue wise, business wise, because I had specific goals to provide for my family with this. It's not like, oh, I'm just a design. I just love designing, and I do enjoy it, but it's not like I was just sitting around designing it
Right.
for no money.
Right.
Yeah.
I had very specific goals. So that put me at an advantage over the designers who are scared to charge what they're worth just because they just love to do it and they would do it for free, right? So,
Right.
but now that I charge what I'm worth, I'm able to do those passion projects and take on the family favors and just do it for fun because the revenue, that's not an issue. So,
Right.
as far as me, my family's well taken care of, so I can do what I want in terms of the free stuff and the passion projects. So, but yeah, I hope that answers the
So
question.
I just real quick, Katie, and then I'll jump to you. But
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
ask, like, how did you did you have a client just out of the grab bag of I'm going to do design that was a speaker, and then you decided to go down that road, or was it very
Yeah.
specific that you went, I'm going to do speakers from the very beginning? Do you see what I mean? Because a lot of times people really don't know what they should
Yeah.
niche or niche down to. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you found out really quickly. So I'm interested in that process.
Well, what happened was, and I when I coach designers, I share this with them as well. You need to have a large enough data sample to figure out who you enjoy working with the most, who truly values what you do. Like they let you do your job, no hand holding and micromanaging, and who has the means to pay you what you're worth and what you think you're worth. So those are the that's the trifecta that you need to have. So I had about 100 clients early on, within the first, several months,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a large enough data sample to kind of sift through. Okay, a couple real estate agents, couple dog walking businesses, a couple hair salons, a few speakers. Out of that group, I like working with the speakers the most. They give me, they don't give me a hassle when it comes to the payment. I actually enjoy working with them. They let me do my job.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go down that road. So that's when I kind of I don't want to say rebranded, but I tailored my copy and my marketing message to that audience. And then it just became a snowball because they have friends and then they have friends,
Right.
and colleagues that they are associated with, and they would just all send them my way. So being niched down, it really
Mm.
helped to grow the business a lot more rapidly than if I was just serving everybody for a long time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really, I think, interesting, that data set thing, because a lot of people
It's
will
really
just pick
smart.
something. Yeah. And they're like, that didn't work. Now I got to start over. So
Right.
getting that data set, I think,
Right.
is important. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, can you tell us like, can you tell us about a significant turning point in your career?
So when I think about a turning point, so I'm thinking about 2019. I had been making six figures for a couple years, but it was a little stagnant, to be honest, probably around the 130, 140 range. But I felt like at the end of the year, I was just working way too hard for that money. Way too hard. So I said, I want to work with less clients, but charge more. So how do I do that? I said, you know what? I need to elevate within this niche. I know they're higher level speakers. In this space with the bigger budgets. So what I did was, and I call it the Fox freelance formula, and I did it when I first started. So you already have a preview. I found someone who I admired. I knew that they were a heavy hitter in the speaking space. They knew of me. Um, and I could tell that they were well liked and respected amongst their peers, amongst their followers. And they didn't have a ton of followers at the time either. I was maybe about 10 to 12K. But I'm like, this person is the real deal. People are really engaged in their content. Like, you can go to some people's page. They may have hundreds of thousands of followers,
Right.
but they don't have that many likes and that many comments. But this person didn't have that many followers, but they had tons and tons of comments and likes and people commenting. So I reached out to them and did the same thing I did with the gentleman at the beginning of my career. And I said, hey, would you be open to a complete rebrand, a brand new website? We were going to flip all of your marketing materials, your designs, um, and we can even do a strategy session if you come to my place, and we can film it. It would be awesome. Completely pro bono. At that time, it was worth about 15 grand. Like that's what
Mm-hmm.
I would have charged for something like that. And of course, she said yes. Of course, right? So by doing that, we did her project. She actually came up, we filmed, we did like a little whiteboard session. So this still on the website to this day on my website, 120designstudio.com. And she sat there and kind of gave a phenomenal testimonial before we even did any work. Why? Because of the law of reciprocity. Not that I had like
Yeah.
sinister motives or anything like that, but I was very intentional about wanting to have her in my portfolio because I knew she was the type of
Right.
client that I would want to attract more of. So
Yeah.
this is the end of 2019. This is the holiday season, very busy because all of my clients, they're ready. They're trying to rebrand and they want everything to be fresh for the new year. So I really didn't have the time to do anything for free, right? I didn't. But
Mm-hmm.
we knocked it out anyway. We pushed through. And then, we launched it at the top of 2020. And what happens at the top of 2020? The pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So while most graphic designers' businesses were shriveling up, mine was exploding because I had her in my portfolio, and there are a lot of new course creators, a lot of new coaches and speakers at that time that whose businesses were also exploding. Everybody's home, they're learning more, they're on YouTube more. So a lot of new millionaires. And who's there to say, "Hey, I serve you"? Me. I was there. I was there, and I was prepared to serve those clients. So with all these new millionaires and all these new coaches that wanted a specialist, somebody who works with them who they could trust. When I tell you, this client, she was my number one ambassador because she just got this new rebrand, which she was excited about, and getting booked and things are exploding. She was more than willing to share me with her audience. So that was a clear turning point in my career. And I was able to use that lesson. And you can take that, rinse and repeat. So just to tie a bow on it, what you want to do is, do something for free or discounted, but for a specific person. You have to
Yeah.
strategically reach out to them, not vice versa, because the client that says, "Hey, do this for me for free for exposure," that usually never works out.
No,
Yeah.
never,
But if
never.
you're intentional about selecting who you would like to work with to get in your portfolio primarily, that usually will work out. So do something for free or discounted. In return, you're looking for a dope portfolio piece. That's number one. A phenomenal review, testimonial. If it's on video, that's awesome because video is king these days and queen. So you want a dope portfolio piece, a phenomenal review or testimonial. You want referrals, and you also want to turn that free client into a paid client. At
Mhm.
some point, if they want to come back to you, it's like, look, it's not going to be free going forward, of course, but usually you would have some sort of relationship at that point with it. When they have further design needs, they'll come back to you. So you're able to rinse and repeat, and you do that as many times as you need in order to build your portfolio and build your business. So don't just get stuck doing things for free all the time. But I was very intentional about what I wanted out of that. So it's like scratch my back, I scratch yours. So that was a clear turning point because then we kind of stratosphere. Then we went to the 200, 250K a year range
Wow.
from that point. And I was working a lot less for a double, so that was a
Yeah.
turning point.
So I think that's interesting because you didn't have to really scale. Like that's one of the things that always scares people is that instead of scaling, you increased your prices, so you were making more money and not doing as much work that you didn't want to do. So that's very, very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because the way that you gave stuff away to get because that's how I got kind of started as well. And we have a drinking game here. Whenever I mention Google Plus, Chris Stone has to take a drink. But on Google Plus, I was doing a lot of free videos for people. And like for big names, like they would do something, I would take their quotes and put them together in a cool thing and send it to them, and that's how it elevated. Got to me to where I could start doing some really good business. MacGyver says this is some really great growth strategies. Leveraging existing networks is very, very smart. I totally.
But
agree.
I think what's really cool about this example, and I think one thing that people forget in this process, because I think a lot of people do something similar, but Marshall, you're fantastic at, and I felt this way from the moment we started working together with the Ecamm projects. You come into that making that person feel special because you want to work with them, and so
Right.
it's like it's not just like, hey, I want to do this for free with you because I really need to grow my portfolio. It's like I want to work with you. I'm going to over deliver and make this entire experience feel awesome. And like, so on the other side, like, I mean, and I think I've told you this before, but even on the Ecamm side, like within some reason, but you could charge us just about anything. And we'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Because we know that the work that you create is exactly what we expect and want and is awesome and suits our customers. We feel like you get us and you like us and you want to work with us. Like you've gone above and beyond to make us feel special. And I think that part is something that people often miss in that free ask. It's like, I have lots of people that come and offer to do free content for Ecamm, but they don't necessarily know what they want to get out of it, and they don't really know how to kind of deliver that overall experience. Like if you're gonna sacrifice that and not get paid for that, then yeah, you want to make it so that you will get paid next time, and you will get those relationships and those future clients out of it. So yeah,
It's almost
I
like
Right.
Steve
Absolutely.
Martin said like, be so good you can't be ignored or something to that
yeah,
effect.
yeah,
And so,
exactly.
Marshall, you can have this recording after because she did what she said there. You can, that you
Oh,
can charge
I was already
anything.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it right there, and that's a
I
lesson
know.
for
Yeah.
any service provider, graphic
Yeah.
designer, or what have you. Is one, you have to, of course, be a person of integrity at all times, and you have to deliver at a high level consistently, right? And don't just look at your client as a check. Look at
Mm.
them as a partner. You're entering into a relationship, and with me, 9 times out of 10, when clients work with me, it's the most money they've spent on a particular thing, right? Just like someone who walked into a Ferrari dealership for the first time and gets a Ferrari. Not to say I'm a Ferrari, but 9 times out of 10, that's probably their first time, unless they're a collector. But at some point, there's a first time, right? So I want to make sure that they feel like by the end of the engagement that they got a steal, as
Yeah.
opposed to like they go into it thinking, oh, this is kind of expensive, but by the end of it, they're like, oh, we actually got a steal. So that's what I'm always thinking about. So you want to deliver at such a high level that the testimonial or the review will come organically, naturally. Just like Katie
Yeah.
just did for me. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna cut that up and put it on the website. Right? And I didn't ask her for that. She just said it
Right.
naturally. So, and Katie,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Of course, anytime. No, I just like it. I work with a lot of influencers, and I really think like the more you and I were together, Marshall, the more I realized that it is that piece of it is that kind of like over delivering, really understanding your customer, and really being like very clear and intentional. So if you're watching and listening, I really think that that's the magic, and I didn't even know that that's what it was, and until we worked together longer, but it makes a huge difference and it stands out, so it's
Yeah.
important.
Very true.
And some really quickly, I know we
Yeah.
got other questions to get to, but something that has helped me a lot. And, as a creative, I'm in my head a lot. I probably overthink way more than I should, but I'm always thinking, you can get replaced, Marshall. Today's the day. You're going to get replaced. Right? So it's like, what do I do to avoid that? Because I'm a provider, I'm a husband, I'm a father. We have 4 kids, we have 2 residences. I can't afford that. So I have to operate at a certain level where I don't get lackadaisical. I don't get comfortable. I make myself uncomfortable, even if just in my head was like, bro, you can get replaced. We have AIs running rampant. I know we'll get into that,
Hmm.
but what will happen? What's your plan B going to be if you do get replaced? So I have to make sure I'm not going to get replaced, right? So
That's so
part of
true,
that
man.
is trying to make the alternative irrelevant.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
be so good that it would hurt more to replace you than it would, to continue to pay your services. Yeah. So,
Right.
Mr. Cam, so he thank you for getting me the the correct quote. Be so good they can't ignore you, Steve Martin.
Yep.
Thank you for that. But that is so true. So let's jump into some design things. 'Cause I want to talk about designing your brand. For someone who's just starting out, because if you look at Marshall's stuff, you're like, whoa, this is clean, this is great. This is the Ferrari of design, like he was talking about earlier. So what are some essential design skills, like if people are just starting into design or they want to take it to the next level? Can you recommend any resources or platforms where people can go? Because it sounds like, I mean, you were doing insurance and you may have dabbled with design a little bit, but then you kind of jumped all in, and I'm sure you have a bunch of resources that you could tell people in the same kind of space.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, and people don't like to admit this, or I don't know. These days it seems like people they just walk on eggshells. But you have to have an eye for design first and foremost. That's my personal opinion. At least to do this sustainably over a long period of time and do it at a high level, at a way that you can have a tangible impact and you can have your clients feel good about what you did for them and also be able to make an impact. So, for example, with me, my clients are speakers, so it may be signage, it may be a book that's going to be in the hands of thousands and thousands of people that will look to change their lives. So, with that in mind, you have to have an eye for design first of all, because I've worked with other designers and I've seen folks that I can give them all the feedback in the world and they still can't get it. So that's first and foremost. You have to have a natural eye for design. Not to say you have to be gifted, but you have to know what looks good, what doesn't look good. Simple things like alignment, spacing, if having 2 to 3 colors in the logo, not more, not like 17 colors and all the different kinds of fonts on your website, like consistency, simple things like that. But as far as resources go, I highly recommend something like Skillshare,
Mm,
or I believe it's called LinkedIn Learning now,
Hmm.
mhm.
Domestika with a K. Those are different services that you can use to learn things like Illustrator. I'm gonna jump right into Adobe Illustrator first and foremost, and then Photoshop. For some reason, a lot of designers that I coach, they create logos, but they do not like to do them in Illustrator. And Illustrator is a vector
Right.
based design program, and Photoshop is a raster based design program, primarily for photo manipulation. So they will create logos in Photoshop, but then they don't have the appropriate files and things just
Mm.
aren't right. So I know Illustrator can be a little intimidating, but it's a necessity. At least a vector-based a vector-based design program like Illustrator. So I would learn that first, because once you learn that, a lot of things become easier. So you just don't want to cut corners, because that'll only get you so far. So I highly recommend going to Skillshare, sign up for a free trial, believe it's 30 days. You can learn what you need, cancel it before the trial is up if you need to. I don't recommend doing that, but you could absolutely do that. Get on Skillshare, learn that. It may be 3 or 4 hours, of a course, and then you'll be good to go. But always be learning, improving. Also, I have 5 graphic design books I recommend. I'll share one of them with you. It's called Burn Your Portfolio. Stuff they don't teach in design school, but should. It's by Michael Janda. It's a phenomenal book. I would get that book. Go to Skillshare, learn Illustrator, Photoshop, and then grab Burn Your Portfolio, stuff they don't teach in design school, but should, by Michael Janda. And that'll give you a really good foundation to have a sustainable graphic design business.
Very, very cool. So, we've got some great questions, and we're going to get to that in the next section. We're talking about the actual, some questions about some tools and live video and stuff. Katie, can you take that next question about the businesses?
Yeah. So when should a business consider hiring a designer, a professional designer, and what should they look for when they're hiring one?
Yeah, it really just depends on where you are in your business. And I have a bit of an unconventional answer, because I believe a lot of businesses, the majority of businesses, when they first start out, you may not need a graphic designer, at least a high level graphic designer. So I don't recommend you spend a ton of money on graphics and design before you've made money in your business. Of course, there are
Mm,
exceptions to every rule. Like, you have actual startups with funding, and they may have raised $1 million, couple $1 million. In that case, yeah, they can spend 5, 10, 20 grand on design. But in most cases, you don't need to do that, whether you do it yourself on Canva or, Fiverr. A lot of designers don't like when I talk about Fiverr, and I have a love-hate relationship with it myself. But, Fiverr, do it yourself, friends, family, or whatever, you have to go through a get it out the mud stage, right? Where you have to see, is this thing viable? Am I even going to be doing this in 6 months? Whatever the business is. Let's say you just started a clothing brand or something like that. Am I really, is this something I'm really going to do? And so a lot of my clients, at least the ones that I work with now, 7, 8 figures, they got to that point without a professional designer, to be honest with you.
yeah.
But once they get to that point, they're like, okay, now I need to invest. I need to make sure that the level of my branding, my design, is at the same level of the products and services that I sell, because
Mm,
they'll get there and things will be out of alignment. So they have to get in alignment. So that's when they hire me, and then I bring it up to that standard that they're at in the rest of their business. So yeah, you don't need to spend a ton of money, but you could hire. There are levels of clients and levels of designers, so you may just need to find the designer that's on your level. So what should you look for? So let's say you're just starting out. Spend a few $100s. Spend two, three, maybe $500 on your branding. You don't necessarily need to spend 5, 10K on your branding, but you have to realize what you're signing up, what you're getting. So it may not be as high of quality, but it'll still be something that'll hold you over. And the thing is, your product or service should do most of the marketing for you, the most of the talking, right? Whatever business is, whatever your business is, if your product or service is good, you will make sales. It is what it is, right? So you already have the steak, and you just need a little sizzle, but the sizzle doesn't even matter at that point if the steak is really good at that level. Okay, so things that you should ask your graphic designers, just let them, ask them, how much experience do you have? What tools do you use? How do you accept payment? Are you using contracts? Um, do you have a client portal, things of that nature? It's not necessarily important at that stage, but yeah, those are the few things that you should ask them. You should just have a good understanding of, what their process is like, when should you receive designs back by, things like that. You just don't ever want to be call it WWW, like worry, wonder. I forget what the third W is, but you don't ever want to be in that space where you're just sitting around wondering what's going on with your project. When is it coming? Who knows, right? You just always want to be in the loop. So
Yeah.
yeah, those
yeah.
are the things you should ask.
So this is going to be good, and hope you don't say Comic Sans. But what are some comic design mistakes that businesses make in their branding? Like, what do they usually overlook, or a common mistake, or something like that's the first thing I fix when they become a client.
Yeah, there are a few things. One is using too many colors. Another is trying to tell an entire story through their logo where it doesn't have to. Your logo is meant
Yeah.
to identify, not explain. Like you don't have to tell a whole story. Like look at
Mm,
Ecamm's logo, for example. What is it? It's an E with like a little cool circle around it. It doesn't have a streaming
Right.
thing, even though the actual live logo, has a silhouette. But the Ecamm logo as a whole is a perfect example of something that's simple, memorable, timeless, right? You can picture it on the side of a skyscraper for 100 years without having to change it. It's versatile. You scale it down at the corner of a favicon, and you know what you can see what it is very
Mm-hmm.
clearly. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate to the audience because what it just doesn't fly over the head. People don't look at that and say, "I wonder what that is," right? So it hits that criteria: simple, memorable, versatile, timeless, and appropriate. So, yeah, and yeah, so you don't have to tell a whole story. You think about Target's logo, Walmart's logo. Why is it in the shopping cart? It doesn't need to be, right? Nike's logo. What is it? Who knows? Who cares? It just, it hits that criteria and it doesn't fly over the head of the audience. So, yeah, I had clients that used to come to me with, I want a feather in it because it represents my mom, and then I want a hat in it because it represents like, no, you don't need all of that. You know, is you don't want a logo that has all this meaning to you, but then you have to explain it to your audience or it'll cause them to wonder. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to introduce any type of confusion or anything like that when it comes to your audience. So as long as it just doesn't fly over their head, usually you're fine. Like even the 120 logo that I have, it's just a one, two, and a zero, and the zero is in negative space, right? So and people even ask me like, "What is 120? Huh? Who care? Who knows? Who cares?" Right? It's just something I
Memorial.
use to
Yeah.
identify my business.
Gotcha. So I wanna dump into the live video and some design tools. And we had a great question earlier from Jim from Fusion Marketing, and he goes, "I see a lot of discussion on Canva versus Adobe. What are your
mm,
thoughts?"
Yeah. So I don't really have many thoughts about it. It's a tool, right? Canva is a tool. I know designers who use Canva, and my thought process is very unconventional because, for example, I use Wix for my client websites, and there was a taboo at one point
Mm-hmm.
about Wix because it's marketed as a do-it-yourself builder, right? So people think of Wix, they think of cheap, right? But I use Wix and I still charge 20 grand for a website. And I do it confidently. My clients are in the loop, they know what it is. So I kind of flipped that on its head, right? So now, by the grace of God, I've been able to partner with them. I did an ad for them that has like 4 million views. So it's been really cool. So I have the same philosophy with Canva. It's just a tool because at the end of the day, your clients could care less what tools you use to get the job done. But I will say this, there are some caveats to Canva for certain things like vector design, even though you can export as SVG now, just so you guys know that. I did find that out. But there may be certain files that may be required from printers, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or other designers that may not be compatible with Canva, but it's just a
mm.
tool at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I would recommend still learning the Adobe Suite just because there's a lot more that you can do. But it really just depends on your audience, your target market, your clients, and what they require, what they need. Because you want to be the designer that your clients are grateful to have you on the team. Because like I always think about the next designer, right? I don't want to design selfishly and say, I don't care about whoever's coming after me. I would be a fool to think I'll be the only designer that my clients are going to work with going forward in life. What if I get hit by a bus tomorrow? Not to sound morbid, but they
Right.
need to be able to pick up the design files and pass them to the next person. Right? Life goes on, and then they need to be able to manipulate it. Not like, oh, I can't do anything with these files because they're just on Canva and I don't use Canva. Right.
Hmm.
So Adobe is a bit more universal, but Canva is making strides and they're becoming a lot more widely used and accepted these days. So I'm for all whatever gets the job done for your client, whatever is easy for them to use and pass on.
So you mentioned Affinity too. How does that compare in that mix? Because that's a great question by David.
Hmm.
Yeah, I use Affinity. I love Affinity. I feel like it's like Photoshop, but a lot more intuitive than Photoshop. So Affinity Designer is a mix between Illustrator and Photoshop. I use it primarily for pretty much all my design stuff, but I am able to export as a Photoshop document out of there, and I'm able to export vectors out of there as well. So I'm still able to pass along those files to other designers as needed. But it's like Photoshop, but it's a lot more intuitive in my opinion. It's a lot more easier to use, and pick up and learn. So I love Affinity products.
Very cool. So live video, and Katie, you can jump in anytime because you have a little bit of experience with this. But Marshall, I'd love to know for you, because it's, a lot of designers don't do live video. They like to stay away from it. They're focused on the page, they're focused on Adobe or whatever. But how has live video for you changed the landscape for business, and how can maybe another designer or, a business person look at that and go, I could use live video to help, grow mine?
Yeah, live video is everything, y'all. Like it's everything these days. I feel like we're moving away from everything being so polished and scripted, to I feel like authenticity, rawness, realness is making a comeback these days, right? Making a
Woohoo!
comeback. Even I was getting my hair cut, my barber was like, "Do you want any enhancements?" They call it enhancements. So what if he would have filled in my little light areas and the size, like think little patches? I'm like, no, because when I show up live to my community, I won't have those enhancements, right?
Right.
I want to show up like I show up all the time. So like I had a photo shoot yesterday. So I don't want to have a picture perfect photo with all these enhancements on my hairline there, and then you see me in person or you see me on live and it's like something's a little off, right? So there's an authenticity, there's a realness, a rawness that people will gravitate towards with live video than they would if you weren't doing video at all, right?
Mhm.
So um I highly recommend you jump into the live video game because you're able to show up. You're able to, you don't have to overthink things like you would when it comes to scripted videos. But just show up on video any kind of way. That's why I love Ecamm, because you could do it live or you can do it recorded. So, but being on video, I feel like is a must these days, and that's one of the reasons I've been able to have um, success in the coaching space as well, because I show up like an authority just by hopping on, just by I don't want to jump ahead, by being intentional about how I show up on video.
So speaking of enhancements, the Honest Accomplished says, "Can Marshall design your beard on his next show?" So
I know. That's a
appreciate
great, that's a great question, Dan. And actually, I'm going off script for a second here, Jeff. But
Sure.
Marshall's been doing a series for us on our Ecamm YouTube channel called Marshall Creates, and completely on his own, he started he started doing this series where he basically is just taking feedback from the live comments and building logos and building design and kind of like live designing, which is what Dan is saying in that hilarious comment. But I love stuff like that, and the ability to do that as a designer, I think really speaks again to that whole kind of concept of authenticity and rawness and realness. Like those live experiences are really special for our audience who struggle with a lot of this kind of stuff and have a lot of questions about it. So yeah, I think things like that, where you're kind of balancing live video with in the interaction and the engagement in a session like that, I think is really special, and is a fun idea if you're looking for, if you want to steal one of Marshall's
Yeah.
ideas. Allow me to provide that one for you.
It is fun.
It's a fun
It is
one.
fun because you're under the gun. There's a certain time limit that you have, so it's almost like a challenge. But that's
Yeah.
where you grow the most. Not to sound like a professional self-help guru, but you grow the most in uncomfortable situations, y'all. That's a nugget for anybody. I know times are scary, times are tough right now, but you still have to always put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow. And things won't be perfect, but you just think, oh, this is just an experiment, even if it's not. But just think, it's just an experiment. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens and have fun. Like I still make mistakes every week on Marshall Creed. I started the show on mute last week, but you roll with the punches. People like that rawness, that realness. It's like, okay, yeah, he's not a robot. He's actually a human being, right? You may hear my son in the background. He may want to come over, bring me some sweet and sour sauce for him to open in the middle of a show, So things happen, right? We're
Right.
human beings at the end of the day. So
Yeah, I mean, every Friday morning I wake up and like, why do I do this show? It's like, why? It's so much stress, and then you do it and it's so much fun. I love
It's
being
so
able to
much
talk to
fun.
Yeah.
people, and like the Honest Accomplice says, Marshall knows that I'm one of his biggest fans. I mean, I love being able to talk and bring people's comments up and interact. That's one of the cool thing. And he goes, starting the show on mute is a copyright infringement on Doc Rock. So there we go. Very good. So let's dive into this, because once again we're I could talk about this all day, but we do have a hard stop. But how can people improve the quality of their live video presentations, and give some ideas for like the beginners out there, because they can look at your show and what you're doing over on Ecamm's YouTube channel and like, my gosh, I don't even have a background like that. How can I be at Marshall's level? So can you give them some advice on how they can improve the quality of their live video presentations?
Absolutely. Shameless plug. Tune in to Marshall Creates right after this at noon, because we're going to be talking about green screens, how you can use green screen. So you don't have a dope background, get yourself a green screen. Get yourself a green screen and use that until you can make some simple improvements to your background. It's a little eerie and weird being back in this home office now after like 7-8 months. Even though I did come up here to film the Wix commercial for like 2 days, but I did so much back here, it almost annoys me. Don't look at this background and think that this is what yours should be like. I feel like it's a lot going on, but it's fine, right? I did take the sign down behind me because my head was covering it, so I was like, "What's the point?" But outside of getting a green screen, the number one thing I would recommend is improve your lighting. Get a light, whether it's a bicolor LED light. Let's go on Amazon or type in softbox light, just some type of light to pump light into your shot. Because I'll show you right now. I'll turn this light off. It's a lot darker, right? Course, you will have some sort of light. Turn the lights off inside of your office. If you go on Ecamm's channel and type in Ecamm lighting, you'll see the video that I did on lighting. But light is so important to your shot. You can improve your shot a lot just by having enough light showing on you, because your camera has to work a lot less hard than if you have a lot of light in your shot than it would if you didn't have enough light in your shot. So that can improve your shot a lot just by having light. Then for your background, just keep it simple. Get a lamp, a plant. Like in my wife's shot in Florida, she has a home office. It's just a nice little picture, a lamp and a chair in the background. It's real clean, really simple, and then you can start to slowly improve it or add things to it if you want, if you wish to. It's all about what you think your audience would gravitate towards. Okay, just don't do it for yourself. Do it for your audience. All right. So
It's a great point.
That's so important. Yeah. All right. Well, we got to ask you some Ecamm questions, because why not, right? So,
Yeah.
how do you use Ecamm and all of your gear and in your studio space to enhance your online presence, and more in particular to help with your coaching sessions?
Absolutely. So, full transparency, I signed up for Ecamm at the beginning of 2020 to be able to show up like an authority for my coaching clients. It's crazy because like so much has happened since then. It's like wow, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I started using Ecamm, because when I started using Ecamm, the number one thing I use is the virtual camera. So I wanted to be able to use my DSLR, what was a mirrorless camera, the Canon M50 at the time. Wanted to be able to use that to just plug it in via USB, because that's how it works, how simply it is to use on Ecamm, to be able to use that mirrorless camera as a webcam as opposed to my MacBook or iMac camera. So that's, once I started to do that, I'm like, okay, this is cool. This looks a lot better. Then I got a better lens to kind of blur the background out a bit. Then I started to get more intentional about my background. So as I'm doing this, I'm getting more confident, and I'm a bit of an introvert. So, but when you look good on camera, it gives you a little bit different, a little swagger. You know what I'm saying? A little more confidence. And then, I'm able to show up more of like an authority. So I use Ecamm to, of course, the virtual camera on Zoom calls, and also I would start to go live in my Facebook group for graphic designers. I'm just giving feedback, right? So I set up a couple of scenes where I have a screen share on one side, and I'm able to pull up the group and give feedback on different designs, and also open up Illustrator and kind of tweak their designs and things like that. And I also use Ecamm on coaching calls, the virtual camera on consultations and discovery calls with design clients, potential design clients. So it's always an icebreaker when I show up on camera, like, oh wow, your camera is really clean. What's going on here? So they have a ton of questions. They're excited. One, I'm showing up like an authority, and two, it's an icebreaker. Like we're starting on that. Like, oh yeah, thanks. It's actually a program I use called Ecamm, and this is what you can do. So then we kind of talk for a couple minutes, and then we kind of get into the meat of the meeting. but it's not awkward at the beginning because I've had this icebreaker, inadvertently because I'm showing up like this, right? And it also allows me to show up like an authority, not like I just plop down on my lunch break and I have to go back to my job at Starbucks. Even if that was the case, I don't look like that. I look like I do this full time and I take
Right.
this serious, which I do, but Ecamm will allow you. I'm not to say it's all smoke and mirrors, but it'll allow you to show up like, you do this professionally. You take it very serious. And with the attention to detail you put into your whole setup, you'll put that into your client's work as well. So that's primarily how I use it, the virtual camera, for coaching calls, and also going live in my group. I go live on my channel from time to time, going live with Ecamm on Marshall Creates, and pre-recording as well. I record right into Ecamm. I haven't had a memory card in my camera for about 3 years, so I don't need to do that. Just record right into Ecamm. So now, if I do my podcast, I'll have those audio tracks recorded separately. So
So good.
I'll use Ecamm for everything.
Yeah, it is. It is like the Swiss Army knife of video and
Yeah, it
live
is.
video.
It
It
really
really
is.
is. So,
And I don't
uh,
even use a fraction of what it all can do. So
the virtual cam, like going into Zoom now, and they're like, "How you can do that?" So I can pull up my lower third during Zoom. They're like, "How are you doing that?" I'm like, "Well,
right.
it's Ecamm." Yeah. Um, so let the last question really quick before we get into like where everybody can find you. I want to know as a designer, because it's almost like when Canva first came out. Designers threw a fit when Canva came out. I remember those days. And now I see the same thing happen with AI tools for design. So do you see them as a threat or an opportunity?
I see it as an opportunity because, and I got to give credit to Chris Doe. He's a phenomenal, just a phenomenal human being, first of all. But he's one of the goats in the graphic design space. Built a multi-million-dollar agency, and now he focuses on training, and development for designers through his platform called The Future.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke in Raleigh about a month and a half ago, Raleigh, North Carolina. He was there as well. And he said something that really changed the way I thought about design. He said, a lot of you guys are, worried about copyright and this and that. And it's a lot of fear talk, but it's not going to be AI that takes your job. It's going to be someone using AI who takes your job,
So
as a
true.
designer. So,
Yeah.
right. So he said, get familiar with it, stop being scared. So I was like, you know what, I'm going all in. So I started to be more open and receptive to it and look at it as a tool rather than a threat. So, I've been into it. And shout out to Nikki Saunders. She's,
Oh,
Ecamm
love Nikki.
fam.
Mm-hmm.
And Ecamm sponsors the Nikki and Moose podcast, which I've had the pleasure of being a guest on recently. She's I would say she's one of the pioneers in this space in terms of making AI less threatening to your average Joe. So if you follow her on Instagram, this is Nikki S. You can see a lot of the tools that she recommends because she does a lot of research on AI. So follow her because she's always got some tools to share. Also, Twitter is a good place to follow, to find out more about different AI tools and how you may be able to use it in your business. So I've been using it here and there. A big thing I use is generative fill and the
Oh yeah,
Photoshop beta,
it's
which
amazing.
is cool because I do flyers and graphics. So, someone may send me a photo of, the top of their head cut off because that's the tight angle of
Right,
the shot,
right.
Yeah.
or their arms cut off. But I may need their arm, all the rest of their arms for a flyer.
It's
So
true.
I'll use generative fill to create the rest of their body.
It's
So
so
it's been really
amazing.
cool. I have a reel on my Instagram page, and we'll put that up in a second. As far as the Instagram, but I had a shot of someone. It was probably like just his head, and it was off to the side. But I just wanted to create more space on the other side so I can center his head into a circle. But I just kept going, and I created the rest of his body and then his legs and his feet. So it's really cool to see how how far AI has come
Mhm.
so quickly, but how you can use it to really make your job easier.
Yeah, in fact, it's not there yet because I'm actually a lot thinner and I'm using generated fill, and it's just adding too much for me right now. But Marshall, thank you so much. I know we're at a hard stop, but I want to have a chance right now for you to tell people where they can find you. I mean, so much great information today. Where they can connect to you, where they can ask questions, all that stuff. So tell people where they can find more about Marshall
Yeah.
Fox.
Absolutely. So you find me on Instagram. That is my handle right down there, Marshall Fox. I'm also on Threads, Marshall Fox as well. Shout out to Threads. And also, if you're a designer, you'd like to join my community, I have a free Facebook group called Good to Goat. Is GOOD, the number two, and then GOAT, Goat as in greatest of all time. And I also have a membership. at goodtogoat.com. Goodtogoat.com. So I have a monthly membership as well. Going live today, doing Feedback Friday. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah. So after this, let's just go head over to Marshall. Marshall Creates at Ecamm's YouTube channel. Katie, where can people find out more about the amazing Katie Fox?
Oh my goodness. Well, I am hiding behind all of the Ecamm channels, so you can find me in our community, which you can head over to at ecamm2ms.tv/community, on Discord, ecamm.tv/discord. And then, yeah, I have an interesting last name, so I'm pretty easy to find. you can find me all over the
I like
socials.
you pronounce her last name and mine the same.
Yeah.
I know, yeah, exactly. It's Team Fox today. I know. I
That's
always
right.
forget that. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, I love it.
And I'm Jeff C, and you can find me everywhere. It's I before E, especially in C. And with that, thank you guys. Don't forget about Creator Community. It's amazing. Go and watch Marshall next over on YouTube. We will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. Paul Duncan, Honest Accomplice, Gary Stockton, everybody who showed up today. Appreciate you guys. And with that, we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Attention all campers, this is your camp director Leslie Samuel here, and I'm here to tell you about the most epic event of the year, Creator Camp. Are you ready for Creator Camp? Because we are ready for you. We've been hanging with the counselors, prepping the s'mores, and gearing up for an amazing camp. So, what can you expect at Creator Camp? Well, let me tell you, an epic kickoff party where you'll get to meet everyone from your workshop leaders to your camp counselors. And yes, the whole Ecamm crew will be there too. Hands-on workshop from top experts in subjects you care about. Meet your favorite Ecamm fam members, amazing food and drinks all included with your ticket. Fun activities and excursions like a ghost walk in Salem, Massachusetts, wine tasting, and brewery tours. And of course, a talent night to showcase your skills. This is the event you've been waiting for. The Ecamm fam is taking over Amesbury, Massachusetts, and we don't want you to miss your chance to be a part of it all in real life. IRL, yo! So gather your camping gear like your laptop and camera maybe and get ready for a wild adventure at Creator Camp. I can't wait to see you there.